In 2003, you'd play a game like Simpsons Hit Run, probably on the PlayStation 2, and it would look like this. But today, we can play them like this. I spent a few hours putting this together on my PC as well as my Steam Deck, and honestly, by the end of this video, you will realize as well as I did, that this is one of the most impressive, unofficial remasters of a game in the past decade. Here on Retro Renew, I create weekly videos exploring the many ways that you can breathe new life into old classics, and today I'll be covering the incredible community mods and tools that make all of this possible, as well as my recommendations on everything that I discovered if you yourself want to give it a shot. And I also think you should give subscribing a shot so that you can get fresh new retro gaming content straight to your homepage every week. We can officially call The Simpsons, whether you like it or not, the people from Fortnite, and with that, as well as the new movie that's going to be coming out, there is clearly going to be a whole new generation of Simpsons fans. There are quite a few video game entries, but of course Hit and Run is the one that many people are going to think about straight away. And so although I did end up playing some other games, which we'll get into later, let's first talk about this one.
When this is over, I'm hitting the stores.
Simpsons Hit and Run was released in 2003 for the GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and PC. It was developed by Radical Entertainment and a spiritual successor to their previous game, Road Rage. This played like Crazy Taxi, whereas Hit and Run is more like a parodical take on GTA 3, and I would imagine that at the time, this game is many people's childhood version of GTA because their parents would just not let them go anywhere near Grand Theft Auto. I don't know why though, GTA 3 isn't controversial at all. Due to how massive of a hit this game was, it's no surprise that it's seen a crazy amount of love from the community. And I went into this completely blind, thinking that this was going to be a terrible experience. But honestly, this has to be one of the best, most smoothest experiences that I've ever had with an older game on this channel, period. Besides the obvious recomps and decomps that we've been getting lately, this is one where it's a PC port that has basically from the ground up been completely fixed and runs incredibly well. The elephant in the room though is where the hell do you even get this game? It's basically nowhere to be found. The only way to get it is through something like eBay, and of course there are other ways, but we don't talk about this on the channel. Anyway, Lucas Simpsons Hit and Run mod launcher is the thing that really sticks all of this together. It's super easy to set up. Pretty much all I did was dump it inside its own folder, open the exe, and then basically enable whatever mods I wanted and then pressed launch. Everything worked without a single hiccup. The launcher has a bunch of these setting type mods, so I went through and kind of deciphered which one I actually wanted and which ones that I didn't really care for. And after a bunch of tinkering, these are my recommendations if you want to follow. Now there are a bunch that are run by default, but basically this is the long list of all the ones that I had enabled once I had finished setting everything up. Also for each of these mods, you can right click them and go into settings, and that gives you even more options. For example, in aspect ratio support, you can change the FOV there. So I did so and set it to 90, which is, it's just personal preference, so choose what you want to do. Also, borderless is something that you can tick and then tick the windowed box at the bottom, and that's going to give you a borderless windowed mode instead of the exclusive full screen. I much prefer this, but again, it's personal preference. I also ticked Direct 3D 9, which runs the game using DirectX 9 renderer, which isn't really necessary at all, but it allows me to use Reaver Tuner in order to cap the FPS to 60. This is another one of those games where if you play it above 60, you're just going to run into issues. So there is a frame limiter within the launcher that you can use, but I much prefer using Reaver Tuner because I just get such solid frame times whenever I use that. So that's kind of my preference when it comes to stuff like that. There is one true benefit though to using the launcher's frame limiter, and that's the fact that it uncaps the frame rate whenever the game is in loading screens. And why that's important is because if you cap it to 60, it actually in a way caps the time that it takes to load to 60 FPS, which means loading is actually longer if you set it yourself like I did. I was willing to put up with that though, to be honest. On-foot orbit camera was something that I thought was going to be game changing, but really this is only for people that want to use mouse and keyboard. For me, I want to use controller with this sort of game, so it didn't really make that much difference. But I tested it out and it makes mouse movement super modern feeling, so if you're going for that, it's a definite must. It does nothing for controller though, as far as I could see. Rebindable menu gamepad is another must for anyone that's going to use controller. Without it, you basically cannot pause with the controller. You basically have to go into the individual settings for this one and then set the secondary button to start and then tick the box that says to use the secondary button in order to pause the game. There's a lot of mods that I enabled here that just skip or allow you to skip certain things, stuff like FMVs and the main menu animations and stuff like that. This is great for people that have played this game to death because it just cuts out all of those little few second animations that happen. For example, whenever you start a mission, you can just completely get rid of that. I also found that in my experience, enabling X input mod was basically a must. I was, however, using a DualSense controller, so what I needed to do was use DualSense X, which essentially just spoofs the controller to act like an Xbox One. Without this, I didn't get any input from my controller. I didn't try my Xbox controller, that might have worked without this mod installed, but it was so easy to just tick the box and my PS5 controller works, so that's what I ended up with. There's a bunch of really cool and interesting stuff over on Mod Bakery, which is the website that you can get all these from. I didn't try any of the massive mods. There's like total conversions on here, like the one for Futurama, and there are also huge content packs that you can try out. And when you download a mod, it most probably is going to put it in a zip file. That's what happened to me. And then you open the zip file and there's a single file inside that, and that's all you need to drag into the mods folder inside where your launch is installed. Connected maps is one that I really wanted to try. That just kind of removes the transitions between the maps, making it basically one big open world. To do this though, he had to remove some objects in order to make it, physically possible for the engine to handle. Because of that though, I didn't really want to get it, especially because I've never played this game all the way through. So I would like to actually have a sort of vanilla plus experience rather than that where it's tampering a bit too much for my liking. What I did get though was the controller button icons, and in the settings you can just select which controller you want the buttons to be. I set this to PS2 just because it's a bit nostalgic for me. I was also on a PlayStation controller, so it just made sense. Also, high quality dialogue. I didn't really notice the difference massively, but I can't see any reason why you wouldn't take the high quality dialogue files from the Xbox version, because it's kind of a no-brainer. And the big one here is the remaster project. There are a small handful of projects like this, but this one caught my eye. Muckluck is the guy that developed this. He's been developing it over the past few months, and he has documented basically the entire journey on his channel. So if you want to know all the details about how it came to be, you can go check that out. I'll link that down in the description. From my short time with it though, it's just like incredible. I mean, the original has this mix of textures that kind of look like the show, and then others that completely don't look like the show at all. This scene right here, you would be hard to spot straight away that it's from a Simpsons game, if not for the house in the background. But with the retexture, it's literally like ripped exactly from the show. This does, of course, mean that it's not a super faithful one-to-one retexture of the game, but that's kind of what's so great about it. Everything has been done to a level of care that's rare in many of these kind of projects, like replacing the impossible to decipher newspaper lying on the ground with one that he's handpicked from the show. If you want to re-experience this game, or hell, even play it for the first time, then I highly recommend this as almost a must-have, at least a must-try. The only other really important thing to know is the fact that this game, when you use a controller, it doesn't always bind everything itself. I had to manually bind all of the controls myself, as well as the fact that the left and right camera movement was inverted. I couldn't find a way to invert it again to make it normal, so what I ended up doing was just making left right and right left. You don't have to do this for the car settings though, that I left by default. After doing all this, I played the game for a few hours, and man, like, this game is so fun. I can't really explain it, maybe the gameplay doesn't do it justice, but there's just something about this game that is just so nostalgic to me, even though I don't really have nostalgia for this. I can safely say that the gameplay holds up tremendously well, and this super arcadey, like fun style of gameplay is something that is missing in a lot of especially AAA games today. Game design like time limits and just having to get to places with like super precision is something that I honestly miss from a lot of these games in the 2000s. Like these were the type of games that you played as a kid and you never finished. In fact, you probably avoided the missions. You got to a certain point and you couldn't get past it, and you just kind of wander around town and kind of role play as if you're in the show. The thing is though, when you're someone like me, you know, when you're in your 20s, 30s, you don't really come home from work and then play Simpsons and role play that you're in the Simpsons. You actually want to play the game. And when you do that, you realize how damn hard some of these older games actually were. Also, I do specifically remember playing the PC port of this game and being frustrated by some of the jank. However, with this, there was absolutely none of that. I'm guessing the mods completely modernized it, kind of without me knowing, because I didn't really do anything. Like, I installed the launcher, clicked a few checkboxes, make sure that everything was perfect to me, and then got to playing the game, and there was not a single issue or frustration with it. I wish all games were just like this. This kind of gameplay where you're going mission to mission, and it's a bit like a session gameplay where you can pick it up and put it down, it's just perfect for the Steam Deck, so I knew I had to get things set up over there. I did this the lazy way by literally just copying everything I had done on the PC, putting it onto a USB stick, and then copying it over to my Steam Deck. Then I just added the launcher as a non-Steam game and made sure, this is really important, you need to use a compatibility layer. I used Proton GE. There might be others that work, I'm not entirely sure, but Proton GE is the one that I use for these older renderware type games. This isn't actually there by default. You need to get it in the Discovery app. I think the thing's called Proton Up QT, if I'm correct. I'll link a Reddit post in the description in case you want more specifics on that. The only other thing I had to do was set the resolution to match the Steam Deck, and then also you need to put -launch within the Steam launch properties. And what that will do is make it so that the launcher doesn't actually launch whenever you press play, it just automatically sends you right into the game. This thing's an absolute blast, as I expected on Steam Deck. I mean, it just works perfectly. And besides that, what I also did was save my syncs with my Steam Deck to my PC using Sync Thing. I did this in a previous video for the Zelda video that I made, and I've kind of got the hang of using that. It's actually really intuitive once you get the hang of things. I could now basically pick up and play on my Steam Deck or my PC, and I tested it, and yeah, my saves were there on PC, so that was amazing as well. I could basically just like be playing on my PC, maybe go sit on the couch playing it, and then come back to my PC, and it's basically like having a Steam cloud, but for yourself. Now, I can't really get over just how good we have this looking on both of these platforms, and just how quick and easy it was all to set up. Like, it took me a few hours, maybe even a day to set all this up, but for those that aren't doing that extra bits that I do to make this video, you're pretty much going to get this up and running in maybe 5-10 minutes if you already have the files. Like, it's that quick, so I highly recommend that. Of course though, there are more Simpsons games on PC, so I had a look at what other ones we could maybe get looking or playing really, really well. There, to be honest, isn't anything as crazy as Hit and Run, and not all the games are actually that great for The Simpsons. The Simpsons skateboarding game, for example, is notoriously bad. The arcade game, though, isn't. That was released in 1991 and is def one to check out if you're into these classic arcade beat-em-ups. It was developed by Konami, and you can emulate the arcade cabinet through RetroArch. I'd recommend the core Final Burn Neo to do this. It's just so much better than MAME. I can't get over how much I hate MAME in the past. Final Burn Neo literally just works. It's great. This was also ported to the 360 and PS3, but since we always focus on PC gaming here, I really don't think it's worth going for those and their emulated version. RetroArch is definitely the one that you want to go with, especially because we can put CRT shaders on these. Some people might laugh at the fact that we're putting a fake shader over it, but honestly, these things are incredible. They are not just a gimmicky filter that you put over your games, they actually make a lot of difference. For example, I really love CRT Guest Advance when it comes to arcade games, and this would honestly be my recommendation to fully playing the game like this. These pixel-based games, a lot of people love them when they're super sharp. I myself love a lot of the art. They hold up extremely well when they're super sharp on high-end modern displays. But they were meant to display like this back then, and so replicating that, you get this really, really nice effect where the pixels blend perfectly. I have a whole separate video covering CRT shaders and why they're so cool if you want to know more about them in depth. Anyway, Simpsons Road Rage is the other one that we actually mentioned earlier. This one was released in 2001, and like I said, it's basically Crazy Taxi. It was developed by, again, Radical Entertainment, so the same devs that made Hit and Run. This wasn't ported to PC, so it's only on PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. Definitely the GameCube and PS2 are the ones that stand out if you want to play them on PC. You can emulate these through PCSX2 or Dolphin, and honestly, even though I'm a huge PlayStation guy, I would lean towards GameCube running on Dolphin. It's just so often that the Dolphin emulator is the smoother and sharper option, and so that's really why I mostly gravitate towards playing that, unless you're playing a game like SSX Tricky, which has different controls. Now, the Simpsons game is the last one that I checked out, and this is a platformer that has Springfield as a hub, so it's not a true open world, but you can freely roam around inside it. I really like this one. It's the most played out of all the Simpsons games for me personally growing up. I'm not a huge Simpsons fan, but when I did play this game, I remember having a blast. I've heard not so many people have actually played this one though over Hit and Run. That's definitely the most popular. So if you're someone that has never ever played this, I'd highly recommend giving it a go. It was released in 2007 for the PlayStation 2, Wii, PSP, DS, 360 and PS3. It's far better on the 360 and PS3 over the PS2. And since Xenia still feels like it's gonna sort of explode on you whenever you use it, it's just not quite there yet. RPCS3 is gonna be the only option that I'd ever consider. It does have a 60 FPS patch, but it's worth having some caution when you use this. There are just weird bugs that are going to soft lock you in certain missions. Basically, straight out the gate, you're asked to jump on these marshmallows, and it's super tricky to do this with the 60 FPS patch. It just makes it really, really janky. This also soft locked me because it caused an enemy that I was supposed to kill to jump on one of the marshmallows and then fall through the ground, so they didn't get to the location where I had to climb up and kill them. They just weren't there. So you will have to sometimes either just continuously restart and see if it fixes, or just remove the 60 FPS patch for those specific parts. It's even worse for the second level, honestly, with Bart, because you just fall through the T-Rex skeleton, so this is basically unplayable in certain parts. These, however, are the only two errors that were on the wiki, so it might be that these are the only two and the rest of the game is perfect. I don't know, but it's worth noting that if you want to play this game perfectly, then you're gonna have to do it in 30 FPS instead. That being said, Hit and Run is of course the best to play on PC. Like, if you're gonna play a Simpsons game, just play Hit and Run with all the stuff that I mentioned. But I do want to hear from you guys. What Simpsons games did you play as a kid? Did you play that skateboarding game? Because I've not heard a single good thing about that one. Big thanks to the Patreon members that are on screen now. You can become a Patreon member yourself for just $1.50, and there are a few benefits over there on the platform. Besides that though, if you're into renewing these older games and you want to see more of it, I suggest that you watch this video on screen now.